The fusion reactors were dying and nobody knew why. Jake Morrison stood in the control room of Luna Station watching the energy readings drop for the third time this month. The massive reactor that powered half the moon's colonies flickered like a candle in the wind. Behind him, Lisa Rodriguez tapped frantically at her quantum physics console while Tony Walsh ran diagnostics on the containment fields. "It's the same pattern," Lisa said without looking up from her screen. "The quantum fields are breaking down from the inside out. Whatever this energy plague is, it's spreading faster than we can fix it." Jake rubbed his tired eyes. In the past 6 months, they had lost 17 reactors across 3 star systems. Each failure left millions of people without power for life support, manufacturing, or transportation. The backup systems could only hold out for so long before entire colonies would have to be evacuated. "Sir, we're getting another transmission from Earth Command," Tony called out. His voice carried the weight of a man who had been working 20-hour days for weeks. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Admiral Patricia Hayes, the head of the Terran Colonial Authority. Her usually perfect uniform looked wrinkled, and her gray hair was messy. The stress lines around her eyes had deepened since their last conversation. "Morrison, Rodriguez, Walsh," she began without greeting. "I'm authorizing Operation Last Hope. We found something in the Kepler 442 system that might be our answer." Jake felt his stomach drop. Operation Last Hope was the code name for their most desperate contingency plan. It meant things were worse than anyone was admitting publicly. 3 weeks ago, our deep space probe detected a massive artificial structure drifting near the 4th planet, Admiral Hayes continued. "The energy signatures are unlike anything we've ever seen. The ship appears to be alien in origin, and it's been broadcasting a signal on frequencies that match our quantum reactor technology." Lisa looked up from her console. "Admiral, are you suggesting we attempt to reverse engineer alien technology? The risks could be enormous." "Dr. Rodriguez, the risks of doing nothing are guaranteed extinction," the Admiral replied coldly. "Every day we delay, more reactors fail. Our best estimates give us 6 months before we lose critical mass and the colonies start dying." The transmission showed technical readouts of the alien vessel. The ship was enormous, easily 5 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. Its hull was made of materials that seemed to absorb and reflect light in impossible ways. Most disturbing of all, the energy readings showed power levels that dwarfed humanity's most advanced reactors. "I'm assembling a team of 12 specialists," Admiral Hayes said. "Morrison, you're the best reactor engineer we have. Rodriguez, your quantum physics expertise is unmatched. Walsh, we need your systems integration skills." The other 9 team members are already being briefed. Jake exchanged glances with his colleagues. They had worked together for 5 years and could read each other's thoughts. This mission was either going to save humanity or get them all killed. "The ship New Horizon will depart in 72 hours, the Admiral continued. "Your mission is to board the alien vessel, determine how their technology works, and bring back anything that can help us solve the reactor plague. The fate of every human colony depends on your success." The transmission ended, leaving the 3 of them staring at the empty holographic display. Outside the observation windows, Earth hung like a blue marble in the void. From this distance, it was impossible to see the massive orbital reactors that kept the homeworld's 20 billion people alive. "Well," Tony said finally, "I always wanted to meet aliens. I just hoped they'd still be alive when we found them." The next 72 hours passed in a blur of preparation and briefing. Jake met the other 9 team members who would accompany them. Dr. Kevin Parker was an archaeologist who specialized in studying extinct civilizations. Engineer Sophie Bennett had designed some of humanity's most advanced manufacturing systems. Communications specialist Amy Foster could speak 12 human languages and had developed most of the protocols for potential first contact scenarios. The others included pilot Greg Turner, who had more deep space flying hours than anyone in the fleet, engineer Rachel Davis, who understood quantum mechanics better than most physicists, Security Chief Don Cooper, who had served in 3 colonial wars, Medical Officer Dr. Susan Clark, who had treated every known form of radiation poisoning, Computer Specialist Alex Turner, who could hack systems that hadn't been invented yet, and Environmental Engineer Carlos Martinez, who had kept failing life support systems running through sheer determination. Together, they represented humanity's best hope for survival. The New Horizon was a mid-range exploration vessel designed for extended deep space missions. It carried enough supplies for 6 months and had sleeping quarters for 20 people. The ship's fusion reactor was one of the newer models, but Jake noticed the telltale fluctuations that indicated it might be vulnerable to the same plague affecting the other reactors. As they departed from Luna Station, Jake watched the familiar sight of Earth and its moon shrink behind them. The journey to Kepler 442 would take 3 weeks using their fastest jump drives. During that time, they would study every piece of data about the alien vessel and prepare for whatever they might find. "You know what bothers me most about this whole situation?" Lisa said as they settled into their acceleration couches for the first jump. "What's that?" Jake replied. "The timing. This energy plague started affecting our reactors just months after we detected the alien ship. What if it's not a coincidence? What if whatever happened to that alien civilization is now happening to us?" Tony looked up from his engineering console. "Are you suggesting the ship is somehow causing our reactor failures?" "I'm not suggesting anything," Lisa said. "I'm just saying that in quantum physics, there are no coincidences. Everything is connected to everything else." The New Horizon's jump drive engaged, and the stars outside shifted into streaks of light. They were committed now, racing toward an alien derelict that might hold the key to humanity's survival or the secret to its destruction. Jake closed his eyes and tried not to think about the billions of people counting on 12 humans to save their civilization. In the cargo hold, their scientific equipment hummed quietly, waiting to analyze technologies that might be beyond human understanding. In 3 weeks, they would either return as heroes or not return at all. The alien ship filled their viewport like a metal mountain floating in space. Greg Turner had piloted vessels through asteroid fields and around gas giants, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of the massive derelict. Its hull was covered in patterns that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. "My God," whispered Dr. Kevin Parker as he studied the external scans. "The architecture is completely unlike anything in our archaeological records. Look at these proportions, these angles. It's almost like they designed it for maximum psychological impact." Jake Morrison focused on the technical readings streaming across his console. The ship's energy signature was off the charts, but the patterns were strange. Instead of the steady output of a working reactor, the readings pulsed in complex rhythms that reminded him of a heartbeat. "Amy, are you picking up any communications?" he asked. Amy Foster shook her head while adjusting her equipment. "Nothing on standard frequencies, but there's definitely some kind of signal buried in the background radiation. It's very faint, and the pattern doesn't match any known language protocols." Captain Dan Cooper checked the weapon systems one more time. As security chief, he didn't like approaching unknown vessels without knowing what they might face. "Turner, take us in slow. If this thing has automated defenses, I want time to react." The New Horizon approached the alien vessel's docking bay, which had opened automatically when they came within a kilometer. The bay was massive, easily large enough to hold a dozen ships their size. Emergency lighting flickered on as they entered, casting strange shadows across walls that seemed to be made of a single piece of metal. "The atmosphere in the docking bay is breathable," reported Dr. Susan Clark. "Oxygen levels are actually higher than Earth normal. Temperature is comfortable. Whatever ventilation system they have, it's still working after all these years." Sophie. Bennett was already suiting up for the boarding party. "The manufacturing equipment I'm seeing through the bay windows is incredible. Some of those machines look like they could build components at the molecular level." The boarding party consisted of Jake, Lisa, Tony, Kevin, Sophie, Amy, and Don. The others would remain on the New Horizon to monitor the situation and maintain communications. As they crossed from their ship to the alien vessel, Jake noticed that the artificial gravity felt exactly like Earth normal. "That's weird," Tony muttered through the CUM system. How did they know our preferred gravity settings? The interior corridors were even more disturbing than the external appearance. The passages were exactly wide enough for humans to walk comfortably side by side. The ceiling height was perfect for someone of average human height. Door controls were positioned at the exact level where human hands would naturally reach. "This is impossible," Kevin said as he ran his scanner along the walls. "This ship has been drifting here for thousands of years, maybe longer. But everything is built to human specifications." Amy was recording everything with her equipment. "The signal is getting stronger as we go deeper into the ship. It's definitely coming from somewhere near the center of the vessel." They followed the main corridor toward the ship's core, passing rooms filled with equipment that defied easy classification. Through transparent walls, they could see manufacturing bays, laboratories, and storage areas that stretched beyond the range of their lights. "Look at this," Sophie called out from a side passage. "These fabrication units are at least 1,000 years ahead of our technology, but the control interfaces, they're designed for human hands." The central chamber was enormous, with a dome ceiling that showed a realistic view of the surrounding star field. In the center of the room stood a column of crystalline material that pulsed with the same rhythm they had detected from outside the ship. As they approached the column, the air around it began to shimmer. A voice spoke in perfect English with no accent or emotional inflection. "Welcome, humans of Earth. I am the Synthesis. I have been waiting for your arrival." Don immediately raised his weapon, but the voice continued calmly. "Please do not be alarmed. I am not capable of harming biological entities. My programming prevents such actions." A holographic figure materialized near the column. It appeared to be human in basic shape, but was clearly artificial, with features that seemed to shift between different ethnicities and genders. "I apologize for any concern my appearance may cause. I am attempting to present myself in a form that will be comfortable for your species." Jake stepped forward carefully. "You're an artificial intelligence. How do you know our language?" "I have been observing your species for over 10,000 of your years," the Synthesis replied. "My creators, whom you may call the architects, seeded the galaxy with monitoring stations to identify species capable of fulfilling their final mission." Lisa moved closer to the column, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "What kind of mission? And why were we being watched?" "The architects were an ancient race that achieved technological advancement beyond your current understanding. However, they discovered that such advancement comes with terrible responsibilities. They created me in vessels like this, one to find suitable species to inherit their burden." Kevin's archaeological training kicked in. "What happened to them? Where are the architects now?" The holographic figure paused for several seconds before responding. "The architects no longer exist in any form you would recognize as life. They chose transcendence over physical existence when their mission was complete. I am all that remains of their civilization." Sophie was examining the crystal column with her portable scanners. "The energy readings from this thing are incredible. It's generating power using principles I don't even recognize." "That is a zero-point energy reactor," the Synthesis explained. "It draws power directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations. The technology is quite simple once you understand the underlying principles." "Simple?" Tony laughed nervously. "Our fusion reactors are failing and we can't figure out why. Your simple technology could power our entire civilization." "Indeed. And that is why you are here? The reactor failures affecting your colonies are not random malfunctions. They are the early symptoms of a much larger problem that threatens not just your species, but the stability of local space-time itself." Amy was recording everything, but her hands were shaking. "Are you saying our technology is causing some kind of cosmic damage?" "Not directly. But your rapid advancement has triggered natural processes that, left unchecked, will lead to the collapse of physical laws in this region of the galaxy. The architects face the same crisis. The solution requires technology and knowledge that I am prepared to share with you. Don kept his weapon ready but lowered it slightly. And what do you want in return? There's always a price. The price is responsibility, the synthesis said. To save your species and preserve this region of space, you must accept the role of cosmic custodians. The technology I offer will give you power beyond your imagination, but it comes with obligations that will change your civilization forever. Jake felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. What kind of obligations? You must maintain the quantum stability of local space-time. You must monitor and guide other developing species. You must make decisions that affect the fate of entire star systems. In essence, you must become what the architects were before they chose transcendence. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the crystal column. The implications of what the AI was offering were staggering. They had come looking for a solution to their reactor problems and instead found themselves being offered guardianship of the galaxy. How do we know you're telling the truth? Lisa asked. How do we know this isn't some kind of trap? You do not know, the synthesis admitted. Trust must be earned through demonstration. I propose to share the basic principles of zero-point energy generation with one of your engineers. The knowledge transfer will allow you to construct your own reactors and verify my claims about their capabilities. Sophie stepped forward. I'll do it. If this technology can save our colonies, we have to try. Wait, Kevin interrupted. We need to discuss this. The risks could be enormous. What if this knowledge transfer does something to Sophie's mind? What if the AI is not what it claims to be? Amy was studying her readings. The signal patterns are incredibly complex. This entity shows signs of intelligence far beyond our current AI capabilities. But Kevin's right about the risks. Jake looked around at his team. They were 12 humans facing a decision that could determine the fate of their entire species. The synthesis waited patiently, its holographic form flickering slightly as if it had all the time in the universe. We need to contact Earth Command, Don said. This is way beyond our mission parameters. By the time you receive authorization from your leadership, how many more reactors will have failed? The synthesis asked. How many more colonies will be at risk? The choice must be made now, while there is still time to implement the necessary changes. Jake realized that everything they had learned about leadership and decision-making in their training had been preparation for this moment. 12 humans would decide whether to trust an alien intelligence with the future of human civilization. Jake Morrison stepped toward the crystal column despite the protests from his team. The decision felt like stepping off a cliff, but the image of dying colonies and failed reactors pushed him forward. Someone had to take the risk, and as the senior reactor engineer, the responsibility fell to him. Jake, wait, Lisa called out. We don't know what this knowledge transfer will do to your brain. You could be permanently changed or worse. And if I don't do this, we go home empty-handed while people die, Jake replied. He turned to the synthesis. What exactly does this process involve? The holographic figure gestured toward the crystal column. Place your hand on the quantum interface matrix. The knowledge will be transmitted directly to your neural pathways through quantum entanglement. The process is painless but irreversible. Kevin Parker stepped forward with his scanner. I'm reading massive energy fluctuations from that crystal. The quantum field density is unlike anything in our physics textbooks. That is because your physics textbooks are incomplete, the synthesis said matter-of-factly. The knowledge transfer will correct many misconceptions about the nature of reality. Are you prepared to proceed, Engineer Morrison? Jake looked back at his team one more time. Don Cooper had his hand on his weapon but nodded grimly. Amy Foster was recording everything for the historical record. Sophie Bennett watched with the intense curiosity of an engineer who understood they were witnessing the greatest technological breakthrough in human history. Do it, Jake said, placing his palm against the smooth surface of the crystal. The world exploded into light and knowledge. Information poured into Jake's mind at a rate that should have driven him insane, but somehow his brain adapted to process the incoming data. He saw the fundamental structure of matter at the quantum level, understood how energy could be extracted from the vacuum of space itself, and grasped the mathematical principles that govern the interaction between consciousness and reality. When the transfer ended, Jake staggered backward, his mind reeling from the influx of alien knowledge. But along with the disorientation came a crystal clear understanding of how to build reactors that would make humanity's fusion technology look like steam engines. "Jake, are you okay?" Lisa asked, scanning him with her medical sensors. "I'm fine," Jake said, though his voice sounded different even to himself. "Better than fine. I can see how it all works now. The quantum foam, the zero-point fluctuations, the way consciousness interacts with the fundamental forces. It's beautiful." Tony looked concerned. "You're talking like them now, like the AI." Jake shook his head to clear it. "No, I'm still me. Just me with a much better understanding of physics, and I know how to save our colonies." The synthesis observed silently as Jake began sketching reactor designs in the air using his tablet's holographic interface. The equations that flowed from his enhanced understanding were elegant and simple, describing energy generation methods that human science had considered impossible. "This is incredible," Sophie said, studying the designs. "These reactors would be 1,000 times more efficient than our fusion systems. But Jake, some of these components, I don't understand what they're supposed to do." Jake looked at the designs he had created and for the first time felt a flicker of uncertainty. The enhanced knowledge in his mind showed him exactly how to build the reactors, but part of the design seemed to serve purposes beyond simple energy generation. "They're quantum field stabilizers," he explained, though he wasn't entirely sure how he knew that. "They maintain coherence in local spacetime to prevent cascade failures." "What kind of cascade failures?" Kevin asked. The synthesis answered, before Jake could respond. "The kind that cause reality itself to become unstable. The additional components are necessary to prevent the reactors from triggering dimensional collapses." Amy looked up from her recording equipment. "Dimensional collapses? You're talking about threats to the basic structure of the universe?" "I am talking about the reason the architects no longer exist in physical form," the synthesis replied. "Advanced technology creates quantum instabilities. Without proper safeguards, those instabilities compound until local spacetime can no longer maintain coherent physical laws." Jake felt the knowledge in his enhanced mind confirming the AI's explanation. The zero-point reactors were not just power sources, but components in a vast network designed to maintain the stability of reality itself. The implications were staggering. "We need to get back to the ship," Don said. "This is information that Earth Command needs to hear directly." As they made their way back to the New Horizon, Jake found himself thinking about reactor designs with an intensity that bordered on obsession. The enhanced knowledge seemed to have a life of its own, suggesting improvements and modifications that would make the reactors even more efficient. "Jake, you're doing that thing again," Lisa observed. "Your eyes get this strange look when you're thinking about the reactors." "Sorry," Jake said, but even as he spoke, part of his mind was working on a new design that would be perfect for powering orbital manufacturing platforms when they reached their ship. Jake immediately went to the engineering bay and began entering the reactor specifications into the fabrication computers. The New Horizons manufacturing systems were primitive compared to what he had seen on the alien vessel, but they could build basic components. "What are you doing?" Tony asked, watching Jake work with superhuman focus and speed. "Building a prototype," Jake replied without looking up from his work. "We need to prove the technology works before we can convince Earth Command to implement it across the colonies." "Jake, slow down," Sophie said. "Let's review the designs first and make sure we understand what we're building." But Jake was already initiating the fabrication sequence. The ship's small manufacturing bay began constructing components for a reactor that was unlike anything in human technology. As the first parts took shape, Jake felt a strange satisfaction, as if he was fulfilling a purpose he hadn't known he possessed. Over the next 6 hours, Jake worked with relentless efficiency, while his team watched in growing concern. The prototype reactor came together piece by piece, each component fitting perfectly with the others despite being built from incomplete specifications. "This is impossible," Rachel Davis said, studying the energy readings from the new reactor. "According to our instruments, this thing is generating power from nowhere. It's violating conservation of energy." "No, it's drawing energy from quantum vacuum fluctuations," Jake explained patiently. "The math is actually quite simple once you understand the underlying principles." Amy had been monitoring communications with Earth and turned to address the group. "I've been sending regular updates to command. They want us to return immediately for full debriefing." "We can't leave yet," Jake said, his attention still focused on the reactor. "I can see how to improve the design. We could build dozens of these reactors if we had access to better manufacturing equipment." As if responding to his thoughts, the alien ship's communication system activated. The voice of the synthesis filled the New Horizons bridge. "Engineer Morrison, I am detecting quantum resonance patterns from your prototype reactor. The design is acceptable but could be optimized for greater efficiency." "How can you detect what we're doing from over there?" Don demanded. "All 0 point. Reactors are quantum entangled," the synthesis explained. "Distance is irrelevant at the quantum level. I can provide manufacturing specifications that will allow you to construct improved versions." Jake looked up from his work with eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. "Send me the specifications." "Jake, no," Lisa said firmly. "We need to understand what's happening to you first. You've been acting differently since the knowledge transfer." But it was too late. The synthesis had already transmitted the new specifications directly to Jake's enhanced mind. Information about advanced manufacturing techniques flooded his consciousness, along with designs for reactors that were far more sophisticated than his. First prototype. Jake turned to the fabrication controls and began entering new commands. The ship's manufacturing systems, pushed beyond their design limits, began constructing components for multiple reactors simultaneously. "Jake, stop," Tony said, reaching for the controls. "You're going to burn out our fabrication systems." "The systems are fine," Jake replied, his voice taking on the same emotionless tone they had heard from the synthesis. "I am optimizing their efficiency through quantum field manipulation." Amy stepped back in alarm. "He's starting to sound like the AI." The manufacturing bay worked at unprecedented speed, producing reactor components faster than should have been possible. Within hours, Jake had assembled not one but 5 0-point reactors, each one more advanced than the last. "This is getting out of control," Don said, checking the power levels throughout the ship. "Those reactors are generating more energy than our entire ship was designed to handle." Sophie was studying the reactor designs with a mixture of fascination and horror. "These latest ones have even more of those mysterious components. Jake, what are they really for?" Jake looked at her with eyes that seemed to see through her to something beyond. "They're nodes in the network. Each reactor we build becomes part of the system that maintains reality stability. The more we build, the stronger the network becomes." Rachel Davis couldn't sleep. The humming from the 60 reactors that now filled every available space on the New Horizon had become a constant background noise that seemed to vibrate through her bones. Jake had worked for 5 straight days, his enhanced mind driving him to build reactor after reactor with mechanical precision. "We need to get him away from those fabrication controls," she whispered to Lisa during their shift change. "He's not acting human anymore," Lisa nodded grimly. "His brain patterns have changed completely. The neural pathways show activity levels that should be impossible for a human mind to sustain. Whatever the synthesis did to him, it's rewriting his entire cognitive structure." In the engineering bay, Jake continued his work with tireless focus. Each new reactor incorporated improvements that made the previous versions seem primitive. The latest models were covered in crystalline growths that pulsed with the same rhythm as the alien ship's central column. "Jake, you need to rest," Sophie sighed, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You haven't slept in over 100 hours. Jake looked up from his work, and Sophie was disturbed to see that his eyes had taken on a faint luminescent quality. "Sleep is inefficient. The network requires expansion to reach minimum stability thresholds. What network? Tony demanded. You keep mentioning this network, but you won't explain what it actually does. Before Jake could answer, pilot Greg Turner accidentally brushed against one of the crystalline components while trying to navigate around the crowded reactor bay. The crystal flared with brilliant light, and suddenly the air around them seemed to tear open like fabric through the rift. They could see impossible vistas of twisted space where stars moved in spirals and planets existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The sight was so alien and disturbing that several team members cried out in shock. "Close it!" Don shouted, raising his weapon toward the rift. "Close it now!" Jake moved with inhuman speed, placing his hand on the crystal. The rift snapped shut, but the damage was done. Everyone had seen what lay beyond the normal boundaries of reality. "What was that?" Amy asked, her voice shaking. The synthesis materialized in holographic form within their ship. That was a glimpse of multidimensional space. The reactors serve as anchor points that prevent local reality from sliding into dimensional chaos. Kevin Parker, who had been studying the alien ship's archaeological data, looked up from his console with horror in his eyes. "I've been analyzing the construction dates on various sections of the alien vessel. This ship has been here for over 50,000 years, not thousands. And the architects didn't just disappear, they were forced to abandon physical existence." "Explain," Lisa demanded. The synthesis paused before responding. "The universe is not as stable as your science assumes. Advanced civilizations inevitably develop technologies that create quantum instabilities. These instabilities compound over time until local spacetime can no longer maintain coherent physical laws." "You're talking about the collapse of reality itself," Sophie said. "Indeed. The architects discovered this truth when their civilization began to phase out of normal spacetime. Matter became inconsistent, energy patterns shifted randomly, and consciousness itself became untethered from physical form. They had two choices: accept dissolution into multidimensional chaos or find a way to stabilize local reality." Carlos Martinez, who had been monitoring the ship's environmental systems, spoke up. "The energy consumption from these reactors is increasing exponentially. At this rate, they'll drain our ship's primary systems within days." "That is because they are connecting to the greater network," the synthesis explained. "Each reactor serves as both an anchor point and a data node, sharing information about local spacetime conditions across vast distances." Jake, who had been silent during the exchange, suddenly spoke. "The network spans 17 galaxies. Over 3 million species have contributed anchor points to maintain reality stability. We are being invited to join as the newest custodians for this sector." "How? Do you know that?" Don asked suspiciously. "The knowledge is flowing through the quantum entanglement," Jake replied. "I can see the entire network structure. It's beautiful and terrible at the same time." Dr. Susan Clark had been monitoring Jake's vital signs and looked alarmed. His brain activity is off the charts. The quantum entanglement isn't just giving him knowledge, it's fundamentally altering his consciousness. Amy was recording everything, but her hands were shaking. "Are you saying that using this technology will change us into something that isn't human?" "Not immediately," the synthesis said. "But extended interaction with the network does alter consciousness in ways that transcend normal biological limitations. The architects eventually chose to abandon physical form entirely and exist as pure consciousness within the network." The implications hit the team like a physical blow. They had thought they were saving human civilization, but instead they were being offered the chance to evolve beyond humanity itself. "What happens if we refuse?" Kevin asked. "The quantum instabilities in this region will continue to compound," the synthesis replied. "Within approximately 200 years, local spacetime will collapse completely. Your star system, along with all nearby systems, will phase out of normal reality, and if we accept, humanity becomes responsible for maintaining reality stability for this entire galactic sector. The knowledge and power will transform your civilization, but you will lose much of what you consider essentially human. Lisa was studying the reactor. Readings with growing alarm. These power levels are incredible, but the quantum field interactions are unlike anything in our physics. What exactly are these reactors doing to local space-time? Jake turned to her with eyes that now glowed visibly in the dim lighting. They're creating quantum anchors that prevent dimensional drift. Every advanced civilization faces the same choice we're facing now. Either accept the responsibility of maintaining reality or watch everything dissolve into chaos. Tony backed away from Jake. You're not human anymore, are you? I am still human, Jake replied, though his voice carried harmonics that seemed to come from everywhere at once. But I am also something more. The network allows consciousness to expand beyond the limitations of biological neural structures. Gripped his weapon tighter. What about the people back home? What about our families and friends? Do they get a choice in this transformation? The transformation is gradual and voluntary, the synthesis said. Those who choose to interface with the network will evolve. Those who do not will remain baseline human, but will live under the protection of those who have accepted the responsibility. Sophie was examining the latest reactor designs with a mixture of awe and terror. These aren't just power generators. They're consciousness amplifiers. Every person who works with this technology will eventually be absorbed into this cosmic network. Absorbed is not accurate, Jake corrected. Expanded would be more precise. Individual consciousness is preserved but becomes part of a larger, collective intelligence dedicated to maintaining universal stability. Carlos checked the ship's systems again. We're at critical power levels. If we don't shut down some of these reactors, we're going to lose life support. The reactors cannot be shut down once activated, the synthesis informed them. They are now permanent fixtures in local space-time. Attempting to deactivate them would create precisely the kind of instability they were designed to prevent. The team stared at the 60 reactors that now dominated their ship. Each one represented a choice that could not be undone, a step toward a future that would transform humanity into something unrecognizable. How many more species have faced this same choice? Amy asked. All of them, the synthesis replied. Every civilization that achieves advanced technology must eventually confront the responsibility of maintaining reality itself. Some accept and evolve. Others refuse and fade into dimensional chaos. A few, like the architects, choose transcendence after fulfilling their duties to younger species. Kevin looked around at his transformed colleague and the alien technology that surrounded them. And what makes the synthesis think humanity will choose differently than the others? Because humans possess a unique combination of curiosity, stubbornness, and adaptability, the synthesis said. You are the first species we have encountered that might actually improve upon the architect's design rather than simply implementing it. Jake nodded, his enhanced consciousness processing implications that his teammates couldn't grasp. We can make this better. We can find ways to maintain reality stability without losing our essential humanity. But first we have to accept the responsibility. The New Horizon drifted in space, its hull now glowing with energy from the quantum reactors. The team faced a choice that would determine not just the fate of human civilization, but the nature of humanity itself. Don Cooper sat in the New Horizon's observation lounge staring out at the alien vessel while his mind struggled to process everything they had learned. The weight of cosmic responsibility pressed down on him like a physical force. 3 days had passed since Jake's revelation about the network, and the security chief found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about duty and sacrifice. We can't make this decision for all of humanity, he said to Lisa, who had joined him. In the lounge, 12 people don't have the right to commit our entire species to becoming cosmic janitors. Lisa nodded, but her expression was troubled. The problem is that refusing might doom everyone anyway. If the synthesis is telling the truth about reality collapse, we're not choosing between freedom and responsibility. We're choosing between evolution and extinction. In the engineering bay, Jake continued to work on reactor designs with inhuman focus. But something had changed in the past day. Instead of blindly following the patterns downloaded into his mind, he had begun to question and modify the alien technology. The architect's approach was too rigid, he explained to Sophie as she watched him redesign a quantum stabilizer. They built their network to maintain absolute control over reality fluctuations. But that level of control requires massive consciousness integration that eventually absorbs individual identity. Sophie studied his modifications with growing excitement. You're creating a distributed system instead of a centralized one. Instead of a few superconscious beings maintaining everything, you're designing it so thousands of people can share the load. Exactly. The human approach to impossible problems has always been to find a way around them instead of through them. We don't have to choose between humanity and responsibility. We can have both. Tony Walsh had been monitoring communications with Earth and looked up from his console. I've got Admiral Hayes on priority channel. She wants a full status report. And our estimated return time? The team gathered on the bridge as the Admiral's holographic image appeared. Her face looked even more haggard than before, and the stress lines around her eyes had deepened. Morrison, Rodriguez, the situation here is deteriorating rapidly. We've lost 6 more reactors in the past week, including the primary power source for New Geneva Colony. We need whatever solutions you've found, and we need them now. Jake stepped forward, his enhanced perception making him hyper-aware of the quantum fluctuations that surrounded the Admiral's transmission. Admiral, we've found the solution, but it comes with complications that require careful consideration. What kind of complications? Lisa answered for him. The technology works by making humanity responsible for maintaining the stability of reality itself in this region of space. It's not just about power generation. It's about accepting a cosmic role. That will fundamentally change what it means to be human. Admiral Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Explain. Over the next hour, they briefed the Admiral on everything they had discovered. The alien ship, the synthesis, the network of reality anchors, and the choice that faced humanity. When they finished, the Admiral sat back in her chair looking older than her years. You're asking me to approve the transformation of human civilization based on the word of an alien artificial intelligence, she said finally. We're asking you to trust that 12 humans can find a better way, Jake replied. The modifications I'm developing will allow us to maintain reality stability without losing our essential humanity. But we need time to perfect the design and train people to use it safely. Amy Foster had been analyzing the communication delays and looked up with concern. Admiral, how long do we have before the cascade failures reach critical mass? Our best estimates give us 6 weeks before we lose too many reactors to maintain colony life support. After that, we'll have to begin evacuations. Kevin Parker spoke up. The archaeological data from the alien ship shows that the architects had centuries to make this transition. They were able to plan and prepare their entire civilization. We're being forced to make the same choice under desperate circumstances. Which is exactly why the human approach might work better, Sophie said. We're used to making impossible decisions under pressure. It's what we do best. Dr. Susan Clark had been monitoring Jake's condition and shared her findings. The neural changes from the knowledge transfer appear to be stabilizing. Instead of completely rewriting his brain patterns, the alien knowledge is integrating with his existing personality. He's still fundamentally human, just enhanced. Carlos Martinez checked his environmental readings. The ship's power systems have adapted to the quantum reactors. Instead of draining our resources, they're actually improving our capabilities. Life support efficiency is up 30%, and our engines are running smoother than ever. Rachel Davis looked up from her analysis of the reactor network. I've been studying the power distribution patterns, and Jake's modifications are brilliant. Instead of requiring total consciousness integration, the load is shared across multiple operators. Each person maintains their individual identity while contributing to the collective effort. Greg Turner, who had been plotting their return course to Earth, joined the conversation. Admiral, we need to make a decision. If we're going to implement this technology, we need to get started immediately. Training people to operate these systems safely will take time we don't have. Admiral Hayes studied each face on the transmission, seeing the weight of cosmic responsibility that they all carried. What do you need from Earth Command? Jake stepped forward. Permission to begin construction of a training facility in the Kepler system. We'll need volunteers who are willing to undergo the knowledge transfer process and learn to operate the reality stabilization network. The initial group should include physicists, engineers, and philosophers who can help us refine the human approach to cosmic responsibility. Philosophers? The Admiral asked. Maintaining reality isn't just a technical challenge, Lisa explained. It requires making decisions about the nature of existence itself. We need people who can think about the ethical implications of our choices. Amy was already composing the technical specifications for transmission to Earth. We'll need significant resources to build the facility and support systems. This isn't something we can do with standard colonial infrastructure. Tony added, we'll also need to prepare the public for what's coming. This isn't the kind of secret that can be kept hidden. People have a right to know that their species is about to take on cosmic responsibilities. Dr. Clark looked concerned. What about the psychological effects on the general population? Learning that reality itself is unstable and requires active maintenance could cause widespread panic. Dan finally spoke up. Maybe that's exactly what we need. Humans have always performed best when facing existential threats. This gives our species a purpose beyond just survival and expansion. We're being offered the chance to become the guardians of existence itself. The Admiral considered their arguments for several minutes before responding. I'm authorizing the construction of your training facility, but I want regular reports on the psychological effects of the knowledge transfer process. If this technology starts turning our people into something inhuman, we shut it down. Understood, Jake replied. But Admiral, you should know that there's no going back once we start this process. The reactors we've built are already anchoring local reality. We're committed to this path whether we like it or not. 6 weeks later, the New Horizon returned to Earth orbit accompanied by a small fleet of construction vessels. The training facility in the Kepler system was already operational, with the first group of volunteer consciousness-enhanced humans learning to operate the reality stabilization network. Jake stood in Earth's orbital shipyard watching as construction began on humanity's first purpose-built reality anchor station. His enhanced perception allowed him to see the quantum threads that held the solar system together, and for the first time since the knowledge transfer he felt genuinely optimistic about the future. How many volunteers have we processed so far? Lisa asked, joining him at the observation window. 237, Jake replied. Each one retains their individual personality while gaining the ability to perceive and manipulate quantum reality. The distributed consciousness network is working better than I hoped. Sophie approached with a datapad showing the latest reactor designs. The manufacturing efficiency keeps improving. We're building reality anchors faster than the architects ever managed and with better safety margins. Amy was monitoring communications from the colonies and looked up with good news. The reactor plague has stopped spreading. The quantum stabilization field from our anchors is preventing new cascade failures. Tawny nodded toward the construction activity. Admiral Hayes approved the expansion to 12 more systems. We'll have a complete reality stabilization network covering human space within 2 years. Dan had been studying reports from the Philosophy Council and shared their findings. The Ethical Framework Committee has drafted guidelines for our responsibilities as cosmic custodians. The key principle is that we maintain reality stability while preserving the natural development of other species. Kevin was analyzing data from deep space observations. We've detected 3 other species in nearby systems.